I just think, where do I begin? But Andy Williams said that, where do I begin, in love story? And I thought, well, maybe I could come bounce off of William Butler Yeats, He said, many times man lives and dies between his two eternities. And then I thought of Forrest Gump. You know how he launched into his story, sitting there waiting for the bus to come? And he got this saying, that famous saying, life is like a box of chocolates. And then I thought, well, what I'm going to tell you is just a little segment of my life. And it was a 5-year period. And I've lived 72 full years, so that would be like 1/1,000th of my life. So just visualize a carton of eggs. And I took one egg, and this happened. I hatched this idea in the last, I guess it was the last decade of the last century of the last millennium. That would be in the 1990s. And there was a 5-year period. I hatched this idea, hey, they want a rural carrier assistant rural carrier down at the Fowler Post Office. So I went down there and interviewed, and the postmaster's name was Mr. Love. And old Richard Love says, well, you probably got the job. Let me describe it to you. And we've had 2 turndowns already, and it's a long route, like 150 miles or so. Besides driving to Fowler and back to the Springs in the same day. And you could be out there in the wide open spaces, and there's a lot of things to contend with. He said, what do you really want to do this route for? And I says, because I want to get out here on the prairie and wax poetical. And he says, well, just wax safely. We've got a good driving record here. So I went down, I went to rural training school, and they told you never leave your car in the blizzard. We didn't have cell phones, at that time, and just stay in your car, and they'll eventually, find you there instead of frozen on a fence post, And but I was so exuberant, and I went down there, and Roger Lundy, the regular guy, he's a local guy, he knows every hill and bump out there, on those ranches, and he was a very thorough trainer. And actually the poem that grew out of this is a backstory, so you understand how you can get out a poem out of these life stories. So he took me out there, and there were 3 loops around the city, and then the big loop out across 3 big ranches. It took 1 hour and 20 minutes to service 3 mailboxes. But there's a lot of things. There's U-turns on Highway 50 where you could die. There's hidden canal crossings. He pulled me up, to Road HH, and there's a cluster of boxes over here. And he says, this is a blind, and you're in a little Ford Escort. He says, it may only happen 1 in a million times, but it could happen. And sure enough, I'm here telling this story because Lundy took the time to tell me to pull over and ease up. Because one day, here comes this big rancher in a big beefed up pickup. And I would have been a hood ornament on that, and not here tonight. So all these things, there was other things like crossing a ford on the Red Top Ranch. Read the Aurora, because if the river's flowing in flash flood season, don't cross it. If it's that high, it'll roll your car, and we will find you, but, downstream. And then other things like this. There was many, many neat things that could have happened to me that didn't. I feel like buying a lotto ticket or something. No, really, those things happen. He says, it's best to carry a little shovel during blizzard season. And sure enough, he wasn't there that Saturday when I substituted. And Linda Jensen, one of the postal workers, says, hey, Roger always took a little shovel. You better throw it in there. Sure enough, I slid off. My car was like this. I'm out there in a blizzard, and I'm trying to right the car, and I got it right and got back on the trail. Something he never told me about was dust devils. one time I saw a dust devil coming across the wide prairie, and I'm bored, so my little escort, I think I'll just intersect that sucker. You know, those little things are fierce. And it skipped my car like this off the road into the ditch, and I'm trying to stay on the mail route and carry the mail through. And then another time, he didn't tell me that, like in rainy season, I go across Red Top Ranch and on the Mustang Ranch, and the only thing separating those big ranches were cattle guards. So I get onto Mustang Ranch, come around the curve, and there's a long, skinny herd of cattle. Long, skinny herd of cattle. And the reason they were long and skinny like that, I learned later, they go for it's flat prairie land out there, most of it. They go for the highest point. You know, the roadbed's about 10 inches higher than the prairie. So they all get up there. And I'm slip sliding. I've gone through, clay. It's just like driving in grease, and the shale shards that can stab your tires. And then I start beeping, and I think, come on, cows, and they're just walking along, and I beep and beep, and the calves are bawling and crying and making room for me, and there's a little escort in this long, skinny herd of cattle, and then we're all galloping, and I says, faster, faster, and then I thought, is this a stampede? And then I saw the cattle guards, and I thought, oh no, they won't leave the roadbed, and they won't cross the cattle guard, and the first cows are going to break their legs in there, and the cows will keep pushing. And I saw the whole world news, and there's a big pile. There's a big pile of dead cattle and a little escort in there with the undelivered mail. So anyway, but I survived all that and made it through it. I cut the herd, and I still had like a quarter mile, maybe half a mile before the next cattle guard. So, this was fodder for a poem. So I put it in story form, and it's called Stamp Collection. I love to love and hate, but I hate to hate without a little love tucked in it. I love these two polarities of heart that push and pull toward meaning, toward message, toward art. I hate congested spaces, yet love the search for spacious places, a minimum of prairie wide that seem to be half as long as time, just large enough to yield a little truth. And so it was for love and hate. I dared take on a winding rural postal route just southwest of Fowler in southeastern Colorado and the high plains of my teens. My competent trainer, Lundy, very early warned me of some subtle hazards all along the way, those insidious sharp gray shale shards when crossing Red Top Ranch that can stab your tires flat, hidden one-lane canal crossings, multiple U-turns along Highway 50 like that one to Service Box 3690 adjacent to the cemetery. Is there a message here? With any amount of driving, we hate the thought of dying in some massive surprise head-on collision. But I love having early on collided head-on with a meadowlark song, which any poet could and should tell you can cause massive, serious, interminable good. I love and hate that meandering rural route, teaching me capriciously what worms and wings are all about. I love to insatiably, voraciously consume the long, delicious miles of country miles. I love how all along long county lanes, lonely, hungry mailboxes wait, as if hoping before the day wanes to be hand-fed something more than glitzy junk. I hate neglected mailboxes, the ones with rusty flaps hard to open or close. And fiercely hate like dust devils blowing, the flurried fury of indignant rage I feel whenever I meet along my route any mailbox, large or small, the victim of abuse, battered by baseball bats, riddled by irreverent rifle fire, or in any way dented damage. But I love delivering messages of love deep into the southwest countryside. I love to feel the breeze flutter of a love letter as it passed from my hand into that anxious waiting box. I hate delivering deceptions. Big gaudy envelopes flaunting bogus green numbers, pretending to be certified, announcing that the Karl Nesselhoffs, like 10 million lucky others, may have won 10 million easy bucks. I love, rather, to stuff a mailbox with real stuff, the stuff of love and art. Magnanimous mail, written in grandchild print, big colored pencil daisies, bright, bold butterflies, and a huge I love you heart preempting stamp in the upper right corner, addressed only to Grandma and Grandpa here us west of town. No numbers needed. I know exactly where this letter goes. After Rossi's curve, sharp left at Fetty's Cottonwood, and due west on Garnett Road to where 4 Sentinel boxes cluster at the edge of Highline Canal. I gently place this hearted letter in the grand aging box, 3rd from right. Oh, how I love that meandering, winding rural route. I love how yellow butterflies cluster like magnificent yellow roses growing out of gravel. And I love to wonder why they do that. I love to pull over beside a field of flowering clover, roll all my windows down, and let my car, like a cocoon, fill with yellow wings. That actually happened. And I love how when between thoughts, the mind will let glass walls roll down until the head fills with letters. Letters cluster into words. Words flex and throb. And then, goldly swarming, flutter across endless blue clover-scented air as wings and wings and wings. Thank you.